Hello, welcome to another episode of the Project Purple podcast. I'm Dino Verrelli, founder and CEO of Project Purple. We have an exciting interview coming up with a very special guest after a few quick updates. Since 2010, we've contributed close to $4 million and counting to pancreatic cancer research efforts. We've also allocated over $1 million worth of aid to more than 1,500 patients and families through our patient aid programs. Your monthly or one-time gift can improve patients' lives through research and assistance programs. You can donate now at projectpurple.org. Pancreatic cancer does not rest, and neither will we. Your support is truly appreciated. If you're looking to get involved in one of our many events, whether that means joining a run team, participating in a virtual run walk, group fitness, golf, or anything else you can think of, visit projectpurple.org/events to learn more. Without further ado, let's meet our special guests coming to us all the way from probably some of the nicest. I know we were just joking before we hit record. Probably some of the nicest weather in the entire country, the OC, and in particular, Laguna Beach, California, pancreatic cancer survivor. Welcome to the Project Purple podcast, Bill.
Hey, I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me on. This is going to be great.
I'm excited to have you on. Not only are you a pancreatic cancer survivor, you are also the founder of Fan Rivalry, which I'm sure we're gonna get to that at some point. I'm sure for those watching, if they go on and they're looking at this, they can see the logo in the background. I grew up. I know I grew up playing, like, baseball was my first sport, and then I quickly shifted to basketball after a couple years. But I always have had a passion for baseball because it was the first sport I actually played. And being first generation Italian American, I think my parents would have preferred soccer because they're Italian. But
Right.
I went to baseball, so I love baseball. I know you're a huge baseball fan, and we're going to get into that, I'm sure, at some point here in the podcast. But as I said, the first segment in our podcast is always the guest opportunity to kind of share their journey and their experience with pancreatic cancer. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to you. And as I said before we hit record, you can take us wherever you'd like to take us on your
Mhm.
journey with pancreatic cancer.
So it wasn't a journey that I was ever expecting that I was going to take. I'm not going to lie to you. It's, the MLB always has every year stand up for cancer. And I just thought, oh, well, that's amazing that they do that. And you would see the athletes holding up their little signs that says for grandpa or for, Bobby or for my friend Joey or for Alex and Johnny and whatever. So every time I looked at that, I just thought, that's awesome that they do that. And it's amazing that they raise money for that stuff. And they got a great platform for it. Never in a million years did I ever think that I was going to go down this road. But in December 2021, I had a cousin who was a lot younger than me, and he had passed away. And turns out that he was on a photo shoot down in Texas. He was on location. He was down on a photo shoot down in Texas and spent several days in the hospital in June. And then I guess they told him a few things that he needed to do and use words like jaundiced and things like that. And him being tough, he didn't, really think much of it. So in December, my wife got really, really nervous. And she's like, we need to get you tested. At the time, I was overweight. At the time, I was pushing 300 pounds. You just like your goodies, right? You just like your soda and your candy and all this stuff. And then in the middle of February, I was taking a shower and I got out of the shower and I was standing next to my wife and she goes, "You're jaundiced." And I said, I can't remember, I cracked a joke or something like that because I didn't know what that meant. And I said, "Oh, well, whatever." I said, "I'm fine." And then so I started looking up and researching things about cancers, pancreatic cancer, other things. And all the symptoms that I read online, I had, but I didn't want to admit it because you're a guy, right? You're just like, whatever, I'll be fine. So my surgeon who removed my gallbladder a few years prior had seen me. We had bumped into each other casually and he looks at me and he goes, "Bill, you're jaundiced. I want you to go get tested." So I went and got tested. Apparently your bilirubin is supposed to be some number like 1 or 2. I'm not quite sure what it was, but mine was over 8. They thought they had contaminated the sample. So they asked me to go back. I can't stand needles. I don't like them. They're not meant for me. They're not meant for anything good, I don't think. It's just one of those things, right? So I go back down and they take my blood again, and immediately my surgeon says, we got to get you in for some testing. And so it turns out that I had a mass that was blocking my liver bile duct that was causing the jaundice that was by my pancreas. And I had a doctor who said, this is not a big deal. All we can do is just put a little stent in, and we'll open up that bile duct, and you'll be just fine. The mass will dissolve on itself. It's not life threatening. It doesn't look like it's cancerous, but we don't know yet. And so then my surgeon looked at it and says, well, you could do that. And here's the deal. He's like, if he's right, this thing won't come back. If he's wrong, it'll come back, and we won't be talking about treatment. Let's talk life expectancy. And at the time I was coming up on 47. I was 46. I was coming up on 47. I said, what's option B? And he says, you can do a crazy surgery called a Whipple surgery. And I thought, that doesn't sound awesome. My wife read about Whipple surgery, and he says, if you do this surgery, you're going to be in the hospital for a couple of days afterwards, and then it's a long recovery. If the tumor that we're seeing is benign, you're good. If it's not, then we're going to talk chemotherapy. We're going to talk all kinds of other things. Had the Whipple surgery, was in intensive care for 9 days. My body just didn't want to recover from that. Was able to get out of intensive care after 9 days. On day 11, actually day 12, I think I was sent home. And then just started the road to recovery. Turned out that it was not benign. It was very cancerous. They were able to get it all, but I spent 7 months, starting in May all the way through December of 2022, doing chemo. And my oncologist also gave me options. He says, well, I can hit you with some light chemo, and if your doctor got everything, you'll be good to go. If I hit you, like, we can do no chemo, and if it grows back, you'll be dead in a very short period of time, or we can hit you with everything that I got. And if it's gone, it's gone. And so that's what we chose. And it was a pretty wicked 7 months, but there are no cancer markers as of today. Since the Whipple surgery, we're 3+ years out from it, 3 years and like 4 months. And so we're 40 months away from it. It was an incredible experience. It was tough. It was very, very unique. And then there's a lot of things that come with this. If those of you that are listening to this, those of you that have had people that you lost, my heart goes out to you. Those people that have survived, the survivor guilt is very, very real. I'm not going to lie to you. It is very, very, very real. I actually broke down during the All-Star game this year when I saw the Stand Up for Cancer, because there's just certain things that remind you of what you went through. Now, the positives, Dino, on this is I've been able to help a number of people. My nurse practitioner, who referred me to you, actually, this is how we found each other. My nurse practitioner has asked me to help a few people. And in fact, tomorrow morning, Wednesday, I go to visit a guy who I've been hanging out with for the last 4 months that needed a support group. And I would go into the chemo room and hang out with him and just chat with him for a half hour, 45 minutes, which in and of itself is a unique game for sure. but we do it and we love it, and we're just happy to be here.
Wow. So I was taking notes here. I want to go back. This is all amazing, Bill. And there's so many things here that I want to talk about. Prior to all this, December 21, I know you said you were overweight and all that stuff, but you had all these symptoms, but you did mention you had your gallbladder removed.
Yep.
History of cancer, negative.
None.
Family history of pancreatic cancer?
No. We have history of cancer in our family, but not pancreatic cancer.
Okay. So, but other than you had your gallbladder removed, I mean, in hindsight's always 2020. I mean, yeah, we all like, I think I'm not here to judge, we don't
Mm.
judge, in terms of diet and stuff. Life,
Yes.
is what it is. So we kind of move on. And I think that's the one thing, even with cancer, right? Like, as like life continues to move on, even though you have a pancreatic cancer diagnosis, just like
Yeah.
everything else, right? So,
Yeah.
but if you look back, were there any signs at all that like maybe something was brewing in the tank and you just didn't know about it?
No, it's actually funny. So, earlier that year, I had a coworker, and when I'm saying earlier that year, I'm probably talking February or March. I had a coworker who said, I need to lose some weight, which she didn't really need to lose some weight, but it was more like she was directing it towards me. And she goes, and you can lose some weight. Why don't we do some walking? And so
Yeah.
I had done some walking, um, and was enjoying that. But I noticed it was probably October. I noticed my right side was starting to get sore, and that's a sign of that. And then I noticed that my urine was extraordinarily yellow.
Yeah.
And then I noticed I was starting to have trouble sleeping at night. And then I noticed my back didn't really hurt, but I could tell that throughout the day I was becoming fatigued.
Yeah.
And I just thought, well, you know, um, one of my coworkers, another gentleman in my office, he had talked about a friend of his who had just gotten cancer, and his first sign was his urine was like dark yellow. And mine, I mean, everybody, when you're dehydrated, your urine's a little different color, right?
Correct.
I mean, if
Correct.
you're not drinking enough water, let me say it on the East Coast, water, right?
Yeah.
Or if I'm in Philly, water, right?
Yeah.
But if you're not drinking enough water, you your urine's going to change colors anyways, right?
Yeah.
But mine became very dark, um, and that was and I didn't want to admit it to myself. I just thought, well, if I drink more water and if I walk a little bit more, I should be fine, right?
Yeah.
And if I have a little bit more of a better diet, I'll be fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but that wasn't the case. We were far beyond that at that point.
Well, also, I think this is the power of doing this podcast and bringing people on like yourself. At 46, people aren't thinking of, pancreatic
Mhm.
cancer, right? And so I think that's the other thing that we're trying to get around that stereotype, right? That
Mhm.
this is an old person, grandpa, grandma disease, right?
Yeah.
No, it's impacting young people in their 40s,
So
young people.
So the infusion center, they call them infusion centers, as you know, the
Yeah.
infusion center that I went to has like 6 or 8 private rooms, and then it has what I'm going to almost call cubicles, and they're not cubicles, but they're about the size of your standard cubicle with a nice chair and everything. Dino, I got to tell you, I've seen kids in there as early as 18. So the juveniles they had in a different unit,
Yeah.
but I saw people that were 18 years old. Um, I saw people that were in their 90s. And I thought, wow, boy, if you're in your 90s and have to go through this, maybe you've run its course and
Yeah.
maybe you tap out. But um, I'll never forget. I was having a particularly bad day. Just with I got neuropathy really bad. So as soon as um, because of some health issues that I had as a baby, um, it's relatively impossible for me to throw up. I used to throw up in my sleep as a baby. So I had a surgery when I was a baby where they kind of quasi tied my throat in a knot. So food can go down, but it can't go back up. So it's impossible for me to throw up. So when you get sick, you throw up and you feel fine. I get sick, I have
Yeah.
to wait for it to go all the way through the other direction. So that's why I've never touched a drink of alcohol, because when you drink too much the next day, what are you going to do? You're going to throw up, right?
Throw up. Yeah.
I'm not going to. It's so,
That's a good thing. That's a good reason for not drinking,
yeah. I
hindsight.
mean,
Yeah.
yeah. And so people always ask me, why
Or
isn't that?
foresight.
Yeah. But but I was having a particularly bad day. And usually they would give me this steroid to start out that would help with nausea. And then
Correct.
as soon
Yeah.
as the drugs would start to kind of get in my system, I felt like I had to get up and use the bathroom all the time. So I was
Yeah.
dragging my little pole, right? Unplugging, dragging my little pole. And I was having a particularly bad day. I was a little weaker. I wasn't hungry. And I wasn't annoyed. And I'll come back to that in a second. But it just, I it, to quote an old movie, I don't know if you remember the old 80s movie Airplane
Yeah.
with Lloyd Bridges. I guess I picked the wrong day to stop. Whatever, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
was just my day, right? I
Stop
just
drinking. I think it was. That's
stop
right.
drinking, stop sniffing
It's
glue,
one.
whatever it was, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I guess I picked the wrong day to whatever. And in the cubicle next to me was an 18-year-old, and she was groaning. I could hear her, and I looked over, and she was actually on the floor, and she was in pain. And I don't know what kind of cancer she had, and I don't know how chemo was affecting her. All I can remember is her dad, as she's sitting there on the ground groaning, her dad didn't know what to do. So all he started talking about was politics. Oh, I can't stand the fact that so and so thinks that they could be this, and I just kept thinking, your daughter is literally rolling on the floor, and you want to talk about the Second Amendment and gun
Yeah.
control and
Yeah.
all of these things. I'm about ready to pull a gun out on you. Like I didn't know what to
Yeah.
say. Right? Of course, I'm not a violent person, but I was just like,
Yeah. Yeah. No.
what are we looking at this for?
Yeah.
Um, but I say something to bring this up, and I tell this to everybody that I talk to. So my friend that's going through right now is 80 years old, the one that I visit with. In fact, his last chemo is Friday. So he has chemo tomorrow, and then he has on Friday, they release he's done. So we'll go ring the bells and clap and all these things. But I tell everybody this, and it's true. There's nothing you can physically do to stop this. This is just what's going to happen. Your body's going to heal. Your body's going to do the things that your body's going to do. You can't stop it. What you can protect is your attitude towards it. So I said, when you have a bad attitude, you're never going to win, right? And I had a nurse that I went to high school with, that really good friend, super sweet lady, lives on the East Coast. Um, and I would call her and explain to her different things, and she'd call me and she'd check in. And one night, she was having a bad day with her daughters, and one night she called me and she was complaining a little bit. And she goes, "Why?" And I just told her it happened to be a chemo night. And so for me, when I'd have chemo on Wednesdays, I'd wake up about 6 o'clock in the morning on Wednesdays. And because of the steroid that they gave me, I wouldn't go back to sleep until Thursday about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So I'd be up all night. By the way, there's nothing good up late to watch late that night. I mean, I watched all the Family Feud you can imagine and all the game show networks. And all that stuff. Anyways, she was complaining, and she just says, "Bill, why aren't you more frustrated? Like, you've been dealt the raw deal." And I said, "Who am I going to complain to? Who am I going to complain to? There's God. Okay, yeah, that works, right? I'm going to say, gee, I'm going through this, but you wouldn't know. You wouldn't understand. Like, who am I supposed to complain to?" And so there's no reason to complain. So to me, beating cancer first starts with the mental game. And then the second part of it is, well, then it's the physical part, right? You can't control the physical, though. You just can't. It's just going to roll, right?
But
So,
your mind can mental, your physical. I mean, there's scientific studies on this
mhm,
stuff, right? And I think what you just said was so powerful, Bill, because not to put words in your mouth, but you worry about what you can control. And that's something that I don't know, I probably interviewed close to 200 survivors, and the people that
mhm,
thrive have an innate ability to do that. And I'm not saying that you're better. We're not trying to, like I get it. Like people in that, sometimes like it's hard. It's fighting cancer. All cancers suck, and
mhm,
some are worse than others. The treatments are more barbaric, I would say, than others. In terms of the toxicity of the chemotherapy drugs and the treatments. And it's easy for me on this side to say it, but from a survivor standpoint, to say that is just so powerful because there comes, I think, a time of acceptance, Bill. And I don't know if that's something that, through this, I'd love to hear a little bit about, if there was a moment in this journey or in this experience that you went through a pancreatic cancer where you kind of accepted that fact that, like, hey, I got this. All right, I got to deal with it. I know you kind of ran through like, hey, I was in the ICU for 9 days. Usually ICU visits are not like fun and dandy. You're like, and the Whipple's not, I mean, we've talked a lot about the Whipple on the podcast. So if people are watching this for the first time, the Project Purple podcast, the Whipple's probably like I've been told by surgeons, it's like the most complex surgery. Like it's probably like top five, in terms of the complexity, and it may even be top three, honestly. I've had like we've had this debate not on the pod, but like outside of with like surgeons in the medical community.
Yeah.
I mean, if people don't understand, I mean, you are the incision is massive. You're under, anesthesia for like some cases, it could be anywhere from 7 to like 11 hours. We've heard stories of like 12, 14 hours sometimes, which are kind of extreme to go that long, but like it's super complex. I mean, they marginalize usually like it could be anywhere up to like, a baseball size of mass, depending on the tumor and depending on what's going on there. And then you got to reconnect everything. The chances of having complications from the digestive tract because everything's reworked, bleeds, which I know is a big issue, is another thing. And I think the best analogy that I was told once was the pancreas is like a sponge, not a scrub daddy, because now we've got these scrub daddies that are really thick. But take like a traditional sponge, take a pair of scissors and cut that. Now try to re-sew that. That's the pancreas. That's kind of the example that I was given by one of the world's top surgeons, was like when we were talking about the complexities of the pancreas and the surgery. So I mean, you go through all that with a Whipple, and then you're in ICU for 9 days, and then you like you go through the chemo. But was there a point there where like you had that acceptance and you kind of rolled through that?
So I joke a lot, especially when you get nervous. I joke, and so when I was getting wheeled into surgery, um, I mean, you really couldn't. My wife really couldn't go into the OR portion of it. Like there was a certain because of COVID, right?
Yeah.
And so I had a lot of alone time, so to speak, right? And so I was joking with my surgeon as I was saying goodbye to my wife and he was wheeling me in. I said, "Hey doc, however this works out, I got plenty of life insurance money. So ask her if she wants me or the money. And if she wants the money, then I'll be in a better place to make it happen." And I said, "But if she wants me, then do your best you can." Um, and so there was a lot of prayer that went into it. I'm very big into that. There's a lot of prayer that went into it. When you go through a surgery like this, you lose all of your dignity. Now, as guys, we are very prideful people by nature, right? We want to be able to do our stuff. Like we don't want somebody to have to go get something for us. We're going to go get it ourselves, right? Um, and like you said, things get reworked. They were concerned that my kidneys weren't coming online as quickly as they wanted them to. And they were talking about transfusions and dialysis and a number of different things. And so when I finally was able to start going, I couldn't get up. So I actually had to call an ICU nurse that had to get one of those things that you urinate into, and she actually had to hold my private part to go into the things, and that happened like 8 or 10 times a day. And it's not anybody that it's like, "Hey, what's happening, sweetheart?" Here we go, right?
Yeah.
And so it's embarrassing. It is terribly embarrassing.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of humiliation that goes into it. When I realized that everything was going to be okay, two things. When I was in ICU, um, the doctor had come in, my surgeon had come in, and he had said, "Listen, your kidneys aren't functioning the way they're supposed to." Um, I had I I had the thing, and so I could pee into the bag, right? And they were concerned that that wasn't working, so they pulled that out. Which, by the way, when you're awake and that happens, it's not comfortable. Then they decided that they had to put it back in. By the way, that's not comfortable. I don't care how much medication they give you, it's not comfortable, right? Um, and so the doctor had come in, and I was alone. My wife was, she couldn't stay the night. They weren't letting people stay the night then. I was alone, and I hadn't, I could ring the bell, and they would give me some drugs every 4 hours and help me sleep. but I was alone and I was awake and I had a choice, right? And I basically, I basically asked God, I basically prayed and said, if this is going to be okay, just give me a calm, peaceful feeling. If not, I will go through whatever you need me to go through. And I got that peaceful feeling. And I just knew at that point, but I also knew that it was a long road ahead of me. I knew that there was a lot of steps that were gonna, and I accepted that because what else? What other option do I have? Right? To widow my wife at 46, that's my option. Doesn't sound like a good idea. I mean, and again, I would joke with her when we were in the darkest parts of the day and night. That night, though, I remember very specifically just realizing that it was going to be okay. But I used to joke with her. I'm like, okay, there's a lot of insurance money. Don't go marry like a 23-year-old with my money. Okay, don't like, And so we would just joke about that stuff. That's number one. Number two, I'm a huge movie guy, and as you and I are probably about the same generation, we grew up on Rocky.
Yeah.
And there was that famous line in the Rocky Balboa movie that I actually have in my office when he says it ain't about how hard you hit, but it's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done. And so I was going to prove to the world that I can take whatever hit happened. I had friends visit me in the ICU, and one of my buddies looks at me and he goes, "This is the worst I've ever seen anybody look." And I'm like, "Good for you." Like, dude, if I could get up right now, I'd probably kick you, but I can't. And so, but I was going to prove to the world I didn't care. Now, interesting thing did happen. About halfway through in August of 2022, I had a scan. And when you have a Whipple, when you touch your pancreas tends to leak. And it's very natural. And sometimes you can create these little dots that look like cancers, that look like tumors, but they're actually what they call fat necrosis. They're basically just your pancreas leaking, and they dissolve on their own. They're like those little candies that we used to suck on as a kid that kind of were like circular, and then they would just dissolve in your mouth. Well,
Yeah.
it was kind of like that. My oncologist misread the scan. He thought it was these tumors that had come back. And he thought that they had spread throughout my pancreas. And he basically told my wife, listen, he's got this now. And I didn't understand what it meant, right? She went home and looked at it. She cried all the way home. And she went home and looked it up. And it basically, your survival rate was about 9 months at that point. And so the things that I wasn't willing to do, like travel and things like that. My aunt who lived in Florida says, "Oh, you gotta come out." My wife's like trying to book tickets, and I'm like, "I'm going to be fine." I don't know what he said. Well, later on, I looked it up and I thought, okay, now I understand why she was so upset. It turned out I had to have two small procedures where three of them were like deep, deep in, but there's two of them that were kind of surface level. So they put me in twilight. They took the two, like they took pieces of the two of them and they tested them and turned out that they were benign. So they, again, a week later, they put me under again because I just love needles and getting stuck. They put me under again and they went for the other three and turned out they were all benign. And,
Wow.
but I had to stop chemotherapy in August. And that whole process ran about a month. And then in September, I had to go back in. But for a full month, we thought that I had less than 9 months to live. And that was just, and that's the mental game that you play, right? And we're all going to get there, right? But at 46, you're not planning on that. And so it was a mental game. And I was determined to prove to everybody that I can beat this and it doesn't matter. You show me what mountain I need to climb and I'll climb it.
Powerful. You mentioned survivor's guilt,
Hmm.
and I know you've had connections now with people locally and supporting that.
Hmm.
Survivor's guilt is something we talk about often.
Hmm.
I would love for you to share, first of all, how have you been able to manage that?
Yeah. So so I'm also a very visual person.
Uh,
So the chemo, and we'll talk more about this later on in the show, but the chemo center faces a mall. And every day, except for on Sundays, I usually take Sundays off. Every day I will go to that mall. I'll go to that mall today, and I'll walk around that mall. So when I'm driving up to that where I park, I'm driving right past the chemo center, and I'm reminding myself of the fact that I'm still here. Survivor's guilt hits anytime, anywhere, any place, right? And I have to remind myself that we don't get to choose our entrance routes here, and we don't get to choose, or at least we shouldn't choose our exit routes, right? And so the fact that I'm here and somebody else isn't, that's not for me to choose. But it is very, very, it's very, very real, right? It is very, very tough. The type of cancer that I had is in this pancreatic family, but the type that I had was very, very rare, and the survivor rate was not very good. But I was determined to beat it. Now, again, you beat it first mentally, then you beat it physically, right? If you can't beat it mentally, and like my friend Ron, who's the 80-year-old, when the first time I talked to him, I said, the hardest thing that you're going to go through is the mental things. It's mentally wanting to get up to go to use the restroom and not physically being able to do that, or it taking a lot longer, right? And so I told him, I said, if you can beat this mentally, you can beat this physically. Well, he's on his last chemo tomorrow. So that's amazing, right? He's beating it mentally and physically. But the survivor guilt is something that I deal with every single day. And that's partially what broke me down during the All-Star game this year, was some of those people had lost loved ones. And as you are fully well aware of, you understand what it's like for people not to be successful with different things. And so you do your very, very best to understand that it's not your fault. Some people, guilt is one of those things where you make it feel like it's your fault, and you remind yourself that it's not your fault. It has nothing to do with you.
Sometimes easier said than done, right?
Yep.
That's the daily battle that we continue to fight for. And I think the one thing I'll say on that, Bill, I think as an advocate, I say a lot of things. Here at Project Purple, not that this is about Project Purple, but I guess in reference to this idea, we put our blinders on a lot and we worry about the impact we can have. I have been talking more and more about this, and this is the power of this podcast. I think the statistics are baked. I think a lot of the guilt is associated with statistics and what the medical community interprets or deciphers to patients when they come in and when you're diagnosed. A lot of that stuff's on the internet, and we're never going to change that. But again, I think having you on and having survivors on that can provide hope and provide tools to get through this. It's not easy by any means, but I do think like there is something in the power of community and the power of what you've been able to do with Bill here in a short period of time, locally, but hopefully here in a bigger, funnel, with us and sharing your journey and how you were successful. Yes, it was, it was a dogfight, man, but like people can beat this thing by doing some things, one, having that support and also having a strong mental attitude to be able to get you through that. And hopefully we can help with that survivor's guilt, because I think our goal is to have more survivors. So how do you maybe combat that is by having more survivors, right? And then talking about these things. I know it's not an easy topic. I mean, it's not something that I've ever experienced, but I hope with what we're doing here with the podcast and sharing and building community in a positive way, we're hopefully putting a dent into some of that. Let's shift gears here. I want to talk about what you're doing now to raise awareness and where that idea came up. So let's talk about first, you and I know about it because we've been talking about this how we met.
Right.
So where did this idea come from? And let's talk about how you've been going at it.
So ever since I was a little kid, I played baseball. I loved the sport. I was really, really good at it for a while. I played in high school. I played in college. I played a lot of places. I had pitching coaches. I played with guys that played in the MLB. I still know guys that either have played or are playing. It's a game that just makes sense to me, right? And so I was trying to figure out a way this year to show that I beat it, right? Physically beat it, and to teach people that you can beat hard things. You can do hard things. We're meant to do hard things. Life isn't supposed to be sunshine and rainbows, right? So I'm a huge Dodger fan. So I decided to walk the distance over the year between Dodger Stadium and Yankee Stadium. So I looked it up, and it's 2,791.1 miles, which is that's a lot of walking, right? And so, but I go, like I say, I go to the mall all the time, and I walk around. I make friends with people in the mall. People, hey, how's it going, Bill? It's good to see you. Hey, yeah, are you on your walk? Yeah, I'm on my walk. Oh, okay, great. So we do a lot of that. Um, and I get a lot of work done. I usually will take a note card with me with all the calls and all the emails and everything I have to send. So instead of sitting my cushy in my chair and doing it in front of the computer, now we got computers in our hand, right, with our phones. So I do that, and there's a lot of reflective opportunity there. And then I was blessed. I was sitting in the chemo room. My nurse advocate was there. I was sitting with my friend Ron, and I said, I really, really want to make this something fun. Like, I could care less if it's about me. It's not, look what Bill did. Listen, I got plenty of friends. I don't need to bring awareness to me, but any way, shape, or form. But I told this gal, I said, do you know of a place that I can help raise money for, and that you trust, that we know that the money will go to where it needs to go to? And she brought up you guys. And so immediately I reached out from Top Fan Rivalry, from the company that I started, and said, hey, I'm doing this. Let's do some fun stuff. And I haven't even told you everything that we're going to do. We're going to actually do something fun tomorrow as well, which will be a lot of fun and be another way to raise money for you guys. But yeah, we're just doing this walk, and it's a good reminder of what I beat and where I need to continue to grow.
So awesome. And I'd love, I mean, listen, there's so many great causes. I am a little biased. I think we're doing some great things with patients and research. So it's awesome that you've connected with us, and
Yeah.
we're continuing to raise the bar. For the audience watching and listening, let's break this down though daily though, because this is no easy feat that you've committed to. This is a big deal. So
Yeah.
every day it's what, how many steps or how many, it's like.
So it's at the beginning of the year, it came out to about 7.8 miles a day.
It's a lot.
It is. But listen, you put your earphone or earpods in, and you just go. We are up to, I think I'm up to 8.1, because there was some days where we travel. Like when we travel back to New York, I didn't get nearly as many steps in as I would normally get in a day. Right. And there's days where you're under the weather or whatever, everybody catches a cold once a year or whatever. And so I think it's up to 8.1. Last I looked, I was about 1,300 miles into it for the year. So I've got
when
another.
do you hope to get, when do you think you'll finish? Like when will be when will you cross that finish line, I guess we'll say?
I'm very much hoping to do it right after Christmas. And I joke with some friends. I got some good friends in Top Fan who work for GMA, and I said, I'm going to figure out a way to get on your show for January to say, listen to what we did, and that, but it's again, it's not about that. It's just if and this is going to sound very corny, but it's very true. And case in point with this gentleman that I'm sitting down and talking with now. If there's one way where I can, or if there's any way, or if there's one person that I can affect for positive that's going through those terrible dark days, then it's totally worth it for me. Doesn't matter. I don't need money for it. I don't need fame. I don't need success. I don't need any of that stuff. I got plenty of that. Right. And so it would be better for me if there's one person in it. I'll never forget, my bed to our bathroom, we have a bathroom in our bedroom, is probably 17 steps It's probably 12 steps. And I can remember days where the chemo was eating me alive. And I can remember going on the ground and literally crawling and it taking me 10 minutes to get to the bathroom because my wife wasn't home. And then having to pick myself. That there's very dark days in this. So if there's a way where I can benefit people to make them feel just a little bit better, like, hey, I can do this, my job's done. I've succeeded.
It's something you just said, that those dark days and that's like a life lesson. You said something before. I think everybody thinks like life is so linear, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you're never gonna have to do hard things to get certain things in life. And whether it's a young person or someone in, that's in their midlife that's probably not really struggled with like cancer, right?
Mm-hmm.
But going back to what you said about Rocky, there's something that I've always learned is like with this disease, it's not about being knocked down. It's about getting back up.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think about Rocky, like that was a thing. Like he got his ass kicked by Apollo Creed, not once but twice, right? But he got
Twice,
back
yeah.
up.
Mr. T,
Yeah,
Clever Lang,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so he just kept getting up.
He just kept
So
getting up.
so that whole quote, I'll give that whole quote to you, but that whole quote is the epitome of life. And if you can't figure it out, it listen, I don't want to live a life where I don't struggle, right? That's where the true growth comes. If everything is so simple and so easy and everybody's got all this money and fortune and all these things, how do they turn out, right? What happens when one hard thing happens to them, right? And I know some people, I mean, heck, I live in a place where your cheapest condo that you can get is over $1 million. That apartment, we have an apartment complex a couple blocks away from us that a 2-bedroom apartment goes for $3,800 a month. So, I mean, it's a big deal. I know a lot of people that have a lot of money, but this is what Rocky said. He was talking to his son and he says, let me tell you something you already know. The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It is a very mean and nasty place. I don't care how tough you are. It'll beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. You, me, or nobody is going to hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done. Now, if you know what you're worth, then go out and get what you're worth, but you got to be willing to take the hits and not pointing fingers saying you ain't where you want to be because of him or her or anybody. Cowards do that, and that ain't you. You're better than that. So it's a great quote, right? It just nails everything.
So awesome. So awesome.
So,
Bill, I got a couple questions here
yeah,
left, and then we're going to share where our audience can connect.
yeah.
I know this probably has our audience that watches and listens to the podcast frequently. They know this one's coming. Genetics. I mean, we're
Mm-hmm.
we're in this really kind of interesting time over the last 5 to 6 years where genetics has become such a big part of not only cancer but pancreatic cancer. Anything genetic? I know you said you had a really rare type of pancreatic cancer, but when I'm sure when you came in, they probably ran a panel of some sort. Did anything come back?
No, so it's funny. They wanted. It's funny that you mentioned this. They didn't. They didn't run a panel on it. I did a lot of. We're big into family research in my family. I have an aunt who's researched us back to like the 1400s, right?
Yeah.
And so, actually, I think it's a little further back because I think we're related to King Henry VIII. So, be nice to me because if like 5 million British people all die at one point, I'm king. So heads
You're
up,
moving up.
everybody. So be nice to me. It's like maybe 7 million all have to die all at the same time. Who knows? Um, but no, it was funny. I actually, oh my gosh, you just reminded me of this, and I put this memory out of my mind because it wasn't an awesome one, right? But this lady calls me up and she says, "Oh, Mr. Perkins," and I hated when people refer to me as a case because now I'm not a human, I'm a case,
Yeah.
right? And she says, "Mr. Perkins, I would love for you to come in so we can do a genetic panel on you." And I said, "Okay, well, first of all, who pays for this?" And she couldn't tell me, right? She said that it wasn't covered by insurance, but that the hospital would cover it. I'm like, would they show it to me in writing, right? And she couldn't
Yeah.
produce that. But then I said, so what do you know about my history that makes me so interested, or you so interested? well, we can't figure out how 46-year-old would get this type of cancer and yada, yada, yada. And we really want, and she goes, and it would be, and then here was the key. I said, and she says, it'll be great for your kids to know for the future that we don't have kids. We've always wanted kids, but we don't have kids. So I stopped her. I said, and I called her by name. I said, Nurse so-and-so, you say you know me, right? Yes. And you say you reviewed my file. Yes. And you say that this would be great for my family. Yes. And then she said it again. And for your kids to know. I said, funny, we don't have kids. And she just stopped there. And she goes, I said, so if you can get me something in writing that shows that the hospital will pay for this genetic testing, then I'm in, right? But show me. And then she called me about a month later and said, oh, this would be so fascinating. I said, fascinating for you because you want to study me, but you want me to pay for it so that you guys can study me and use them at all your medical conferences. Have somebody else pay for it, and I'll be happy to get poked and prodded.
Yeah, I'm surprised that, but like genetic testing now, there's companies that we can find to do it for free. But the kid things, and if you don't have kids, then there's nothing really to pass on. But I do think the only place where I would go, but given that you haven't had a reoccurrence or anything, is like if in fact there are some treatments that fare better with certain genetic profiles. That's kind of strange. I mean, like this day and age, like the testing is and so inexpensive, but also I think a lot of the major centers do it in-house anyways. It's kind of strange that they would want you to pay for that. But
and I even told the lady, I said, listen, when I come in next time for my chemo, when they hook up to my port, I said, take all the blood that you want that you can and she's like, well, no, we have to do it in a specific way. And I said, no. I'm already connected. Like, take whatever you want. Go run whatever you want.
Yeah.
So I don't know if she knew what she was doing, but it was funny.
My next question, I know we really haven't talked about the top fan rivalry community that you've built, but you've mentioned some things. What's the support been during this time of the community, your community, and what's that been like for you as you now pay it forward and start to build this community further?
So people are just finding out about it now. The ones that I were closest to, the ones that I were actually very close to, knew about it. But most of the people in the community didn't know about it because I didn't want. Anytime the word cancer comes up, people kind of look at you differently. Okay. And I didn't want that to happen. I was too young for that, right? If I were 89 years old and I had cancer and somebody wants to say, oh, yeah, okay, I get it. But I'm 46. Most people didn't know that it existed until we sent out a newsletter announcing our relationship with you guys, which I'm sure you saw. We sent out a monthly newsletter. And there was a story in there where Megan asked some questions of me, and I answered those questions. And I was getting messages from people. I didn't know that you had cancer, right? Because a lot of the things I do are very private. I have my small support group with my family and some very, very close friends. But those in Top Fan that knew about it, they were very supportive. But now the support is kind of coming out of the woodworks. Why didn't you tell me? Well,
Yeah.
It's okay, right? So.
For someone watching or listening that maybe just got diagnosed, Bill, given your experience, and this is a loaded question. This is the two questions that we say for the end are always loaded, and there's no right or wrong to that. But this one, someone who's watching or listening just got diagnosed. Given what you've gone through, the success you've had, the struggles that you had, and how you got through that, what things would you tell this person?
Okay. Number one is be patient. That's 100% be patient. Be patient in the fact that, again, it's a mental game before it's a physical game. If you let it beat you mentally, physically, you're done. And it's going to be harder. So be patient. There's going to be very, very bad days. And there's going to be very, very good days. But be patient. Number two, battle it with your close friends and your family. But you battle it. Don't let them, because there were times when people knew and they would reach out and they really felt bad and what could I do? And the type of cancer that I had in this pancreatic family was one of those ones where if I got sick on the chemo, it could kill me. So I had people that were offering to, can we bring meals in? Can we do this for you? Can we do that for you? And we had to say no. Um, and so battle it, but understand that it's a you against you battle, right? And then number three, enjoy the journey. You're going to learn a lot through it. You're going to learn a lot about how much you can take, how many times you can get knocked down, and how many times you can get up, right? But just walk through the journey and enjoy it. You may be in a situation like me where your wife's sleeping next to you and I'm laying on a couch and she decides that she wants to sleep on the couch because she wants to the other couch because she wants to be close to me, but she's asleep and I can't sleep. And I'm watching the 75th rerun of some a Family Feud episode or whatever. But just it's okay. And the sun always comes up the next day, right? So I guess those are my advices. Beat it mentally first, and then let it physically let it help you.
Powerful. Last question, and then we're going to share where audience can connect with you or follow along. Again, the loaded question, and this is the loaded of the loaded. Given your experience, there's no right or wrong to this. How do you define the term pancreatic cancer? What's your definition of it?
My definition is it's a little different than everybody else's. My definition is it's just cancer. That's all it is. And I know that there are people that have had it, that have had severe cases, celebrities Patrick Swayze, for example, right? And others, but it's just cancer. You either choose to try to beat it or you choose not, and so you mentioned the internet before. The internet is probably the most dangerous thing you can look on when you have cancer because it's just like social media, right? I mean, how many times do people on social media share pictures of them just rolling out of bed, Ralph the Night hairdresser, right? And, no, they're always showing their cool little selfies with the beach in the background and they're on vacation and stuff like that, right? And so they always show the best sides. The flip side to that is if you go look up things on the internet, you're never going to find the positives. You're never going to find stories of the people that were able to survive. You're mostly going to find the stories of the people that lost their lives and how painful it was and how much it hurt families and friends and things like that. So I would say if I were defining it, I would say it's just cancer. And you have the opportunity just like anybody else to beat it. Now, I apologize. I'm not trying to be overly simplistic to anybody that's struggling through it. Please, I'm not saying that, and I'm not saying that if it's mind over matter, right? It's not. I mean, the body's going to do what it's going to do, but there are ways to win. And even when I was given that diagnosis where they misread that chart, I thought of all the things that I still wanted to do and all the positive things that I could still do. Could I tell some stories for people? And I was going to have my wife film me and go through different segments of my life so that I could leave a video record of what I had experienced in life and the great things that I had been able to experience and the trials and the struggles and the hard times and how, you beat those different things. So, I mean, I'm not in light of it, but just remember it's just one thing and we all had the ability to grow from it, right?
It's powerful.
I mean, you had an example of it, and look what came out of it. You were able to create something amazing to help people. So there you go.
I think you just said so many, like there's a term I use, golden nuggets, right? And social media is like, I call that one that starts with F, fake book, like that's fake book. I mean, we use it. I mean, I always try to find the positives in everything. I mean, we've connected with so many amazing human beings from around the world. I had a lady from South Africa on our podcast yesterday that we recorded, and it's the power of connection, right? And the positivity there. But, Yeah, I think the internet is a place where people should avoid, but at the end of the day, like a diagnosis, doesn't define you and it shouldn't change your life. But just like everything else, I think we said in the beginning, like life goes on, man, and like you've got to like find ways to get up. And I'm not an expert and I'm not perfect, but I think what I've seen over the 7 years plus of doing this podcast and interviewing over 200 survivors that have actually thrived and done very well, is that they have this innate ability to just keep moving and getting up. Oh, and to your point, I know you said you were crawling to the bathroom. If that's what you got to do is crawl, then you crawl, right? So, Bill, this has been awesome. I really I'm honored to not only have the opportunity to share your experience, your journey, but also have Project Purple benefit from something that's really cool. The walking every day. I mean, what we try to do is try to find the positive and the negative, and so we do that by, endurance. A lot of it's running, some of it's walking, some of it's jogging, some of it's crawling, man. And like you find a way. So I love that we're connected on that. If someone wants to learn more about your journey and stay connected with you, I know if we've got a lot of fans. So like if someone's into baseball, man, we didn't even. I know that's another podcast where we'll dive deep into baseball. And let's be honest, you don't have to be a Dodgers fan, right? I know you could be.
If you don't like America's team, that's okay. We'll still talk to you. It's not a big deal. No, no, you don't. In fact, it's funny that you say baseball because we're going to launch basketball and hockey here probably in the next
I,
3 months.
I'll be all over the basketball one. We've got
I'm
and
sure you will.
we've got a big Nick following.
Good.
We've got Jalen Brunson is the best player in the NBA, and I
That's
just don't say
listen.
that
That's my
because he's a
bucket
big.
list. That's my bucket list. I've never been to the Knicks game. I've been to Madison Square Garden or been around it, but I've never been to
Yeah.
a Knicks game. I cannot
Oh,
wait to go.
I will take you up on that. Well, hey, I will take you to Brooklyn because I personally just bought Brooklyn. So I just bought Brooklyn Nets season tickets right before the day before the draft because there was a rumor that or the lottery, the draft lottery, that they would get the number one pick. They didn't. They landed to eighth, but we'll have to. Well, if you come to New York again in the wintertime during the NBA, Knicks and Nets on me. Let's put it there. Um, but
Sounds good
where
to
can
me.
our audience connect with you if they want to follow
So
your journey?
yeah, absolutely. You can go to our website, popfanrivalry.com. We put a lot of our stuff up there. We have a national commercial that we have on there. A lot of our different things that we do, events that we do. We do a lot of box breaking, which is card breaking, and for card collectors, just fun stuff for communities. You can also follow us on all the socials. We do have a Facebook. We do have X or Twitter. We do have Instagram. Feel free to, and YouTube, and feel free to follow us on any of those. We put up daily content on that stuff. I do a morning show. In fact, it was funny. I did a morning show at noon your time, 9 a.m. my time, Tuesdays and Thursdays. And I started this fun thing, called Start One, Bench One, Cut One, where you had
We,
to pick, yeah. And so I had a Metropolitans fan on, a New York Mets fan on, and she's so funny. She got so frustrated after she goes, "I'm going to turn this around on you," and I'm like, "Anytime, anybody's welcome." She's the first person to do this, and so this morning show, she turned it around on me. I'm like, "Oh, this is
that's
perfect. This is
awesome. That's
awesome."
awesome. That's
So it's
awesome.
on our Instagram, but check us out wherever you like. We're just excited to be partnered up with you guys. We've got some amazing things that I haven't even talked to you and or Sam about, but there's some amazing things that we're going to do. And again, it's you guys have created a tool to help people that are in need of the help. I listen, I'm just one person. And I'm honored that you've decided to bring me on your podcast. I can't wait to have you online. And in fact, I think we're filming this week and it'll launch next week. So I'm excited to have you on. It's going to be fun.
Awesome. Awesome. Bill, thank you so much for being a guest and allowing us to share your journey.
Yes, 100%. Anytime. Have me back anytime. I love it.
Thank you for listening and watching to another episode of the Project Purple podcast. If you like this episode, feel free to share this episode and make sure to give us a follow on YouTube and make sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts to the Project Purple podcast. That's a wrap of another episode of the Project Purple podcast. Thanks for listening, and be safe till next time.